All right, let's go ahead and get here into the mix in week 11. Dallas Cowboys and the Carolina Panthers. This is 10.5 in favor of the Dallas Cowboys, 41.5 all the way to 42.5 on the total. Adam, I'll start with you. There were a lot of people out there in the media that were excited about what was going to be happening with the play caller change in Carolina. Nothing happened. Frank Reich has now taken that back. And we see the Dallas Cowboys. It looks like a pretty good bully whenever they play bad teams. I know it is on the other side of 10, but is that enough?
All right. So what we need to do is talk about the home games that the Carolina Panthers have played, because that is where this game is located, right? Home to New Orleans, they lost 20-17. Home to Minnesota, that was Kirk Cousins' Minnesota, they lost 21-13. Home to Houston, they won a couple weeks ago, 15-13. And then home to Indianapolis, they lost on Thursday in a 27-13 game in which there were 2 pick sixes that went against them. And I say all of that to say this. They're getting 10.5 at home. And Dallas is a team that, you're right, Matt, can absolutely bully bad teams. However, the reason I bring up those home scores for Indianapolis is for Carolina is that they are potentially going to be as healthy as they've been defensively for the entire season. Brian Burns is going to be in this game, and Ejiro Evero has proven to be one of the better defensive coordinators in terms of scheme in the league. So maybe the 10.5 isn't your bag because you've had the privilege of watching the offense this year for the Carolina Panthers, and the fact that Bryce Young might well be the worst starting quarterback in the league, not named DTR or Tommy DeVito. But maybe that leads you to play an under instead of Carolina. I don't think there are going to be a ton of points in this game one way or the other.
Steven, we called the Rico Dowdle stuff last week. Hopefully people got in on that. I actually got a couple of tweets, people tweeting in saying that they actually did get in on that. So that's kind of fun. This could be another week for Rico Dowdle. And I say this not because I think the Cowboys could be blowing them out. I think he's going to start stealing touches from in that backfield, because if you look, his efficiency is much, much better right now. And it seems like when he's out on the field, he just looks like the better back. And so on top of the fact that they're 10.5 point favorites, I think he might just be getting more touches than Pollard here down the stretch. So I might go back to the well this week with that on Dowdle before the sports books catch up with some sort of role change. But what do you think about the 10.5? What do you think about the 42.5?
Like the Rico angle, don't mind it at all. Hear all of Adam's points, and also whatever. I'm laying the points. I'm taking the Cowboys here. Like 17.5 last week against Tommy DeVito. Carolina doesn't have any type of real home field advantage at this point. Now we're getting 10.5. I think this should be 2 touchdowns. Carolina, I have at this point the number 31 team in the NFL, and it's basically the same tiers as the Giants at this point. You know, obviously we know DeVito's probably not a viable NFL quarterback, but even though he was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft, I don't think Bryce Young is a viable quarterback right now. So not with this play calling disaster. And it seems to me Frank Reich is desperate and maybe worried his job's on the line to take these duties back. It's not getting any better. Among quarterbacks with at least 50 plays this year, Bryce Young is 37th and 39th in EPA and success rate, respectively. So yeah, I'll lay the points. That's fine. And I also think more broadly with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not talking about postseason success. We all know that the Cowboys, when they're going up in class, it's tough for them, but they're bullies against the rest. And their schedule the next 3 weeks is very easy. I'd be surprised if they lose any of their next 3 games, and that includes a game against Seattle. Meanwhile, the Eagles have 3 games against the Chiefs and the Bills and the 49ers. So there have been some futures that I've been looking at the Cowboys that I think are going to mature very nicely over the next few weeks, starting with 4-1 to win the NFC East. I think there's a chance that they're playing for either a share or perhaps even the outright lead when they have the rematch against the Eagles in a couple of weeks. If you look at the numbers Dak Prescott is putting up, he's putting up monster numbers more than any other quarterback in the league right now. We're starting to get some media personalities and in the sports world talk about him as a dark horse MVP candidate. And if you look at the schedule as well, not just the fact that he's playing easy teams, he's going to have the eyes of all the voters on him several times over the next 5 weeks, with a couple of Thursday games, Fox America's Game of the Week games, a Saturday standalone game. He's going to have every opportunity to move up this odds board. Now, the winner of Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes this week is going to take over as the favorite in that market. But I think you can make an argument that Dak should already be maybe the number 3 choice right now. So I think he has to win the division to win MVP. He's not going to be a wild card and win it. But at 35-1 right now, after it was 40 earlier this week, I still think there's some chance for this to age nicely as the year goes on.
Yeah, I pushed back on you on Slack. I'll push back on you here. I don't agree at all. I think Dak's MVP case died in Philadelphia in that last game, because if this is a narrative award, and it's still going to be a narrative award, Dak has something now to overcome. He doesn't have a clean path. And maybe that's why it's 35-1 and you can like it at 35-1. But Dak's decision-making is something that is going to get extra scrutiny if anything goes wrong between now and the end of the season. And as you said, they have to beat Philadelphia, and they're not a fundamentally better team than Philadelphia, although they did deserve a better fate in that game than what they ultimately got. So I agree with you there, but you're talking about him needing a whole lot of things to go right, which, as you said, 35-1, you want to lay it out on 35-1. If that fits within the rest of your profile, then sure, that makes sense to me if you want to play it that way, because that is probably a better way to play Dallas than playing them for division or playing them for conference, because you're getting a better value on that.
Yeah, I definitely don't want any, Matt, I don't want any playoff outcomes with Dallas futures. We've seen what happens once they get to the elites in the playoffs, but everything I've talked about is about regular season situations.
Listen, I don't mind it. I actually am kind of with you here, because I don't think that this award is settled by any stretch of the imagination. And if he can go win it is the thing. And like, so I like to see clear paths, like straight lines. Like, can we draw a direct line? He's going to have to beat 5 playoff teams in a row, and 3 of those games are in prime time. If he beats 5 playoff teams in a row, 3 island games, he's going to win the MVP. Like, it's going to happen. Like, it would be Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit. Like, I mean, and 3 of those games are in prime time. And so like he can go win the award. And so to put a long ticket in there on him, given what they still have in front of them, I don't mind that at all. Actually,
the other side of it too is the other favorites in the market are either well behind him statistically, like Lamar Jackson, or have a lot of interceptions.
Like, we got to get this out of here. Like, what is going on here? I mean, like, Lamar's dead. He's not going to have the counting stats to get this done. Like, it's just
it's a marriage of record and counting stats. Yeah. It's not the Heisman. It's not just record. So, and all the other quarterbacks have a lot of interceptions already. Now, Dak's got to keep that down too. And the last thing I'll say as well, now he's drifted a little bit already. He's, you can still get 30-1, but CeeDee Lamb is on a heater right now. He has gotten a ton of targets, a ton of yardage. The touchdowns are coming up. As we sit now, he's only about 100 yards behind Tyreek Hill. If this continues, then that's a monster price that's going to shorten over the next few weeks as well for Offensive Player of the Year.
Adam, you have anything else on this?
I would only say that Miami just went through one of the parts of their schedule that is going to be one of the harder ones, and the Tyreek Hill stats, especially this week as we get to the game against Las Vegas, that this is the beginning of when the Tyreek Hill stats go back the right direction for Miami.
Yeah, I agree. But half of my strategy here, Adam, and this is even a nice conversation, generally speaking, with betting. I'm not saying that CeeDee Lamb's going to go beat Tyreek Hill, but I think I might get some optionality in the last few weeks of the season where he's close enough where I can use some of that equity I've built up in potential profit from CeeDee Lamb and just transfer it to Tyreek Hill if I get into a situation where it's basically going to be one or the other.
Sure. And I think, we could probably get into a greater discussion of who's listening to this podcast and what the ultimate play here is. But, I'm talking just here right now in terms of what I see with these guys. So here, I hear you for sure in terms of the way you're playing it.
Yeah, I like Dak better than I do Lamb. But I think that Dak is at least interesting because he has a way to play his way into winning it. Like that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, we know we know the island games make people's opinions change more than normal. It just does. Like, I mean, we see it. The odds change in real time in the island games. Like literally you sit there and watch, and like people are betting the stuff and off of what they're watching because everybody's watching at the same time. And so he has 3 opportunities to really change people's sentiment and opinion on him down the stretch here.